You're listening to Australia's national youth radio station, Triple J. For more info, go to triplej.net.au.
Sunday Night Safran. Religion, politics, culture, and lisping.
Shalom and salam, Father
And the
Bob.
same to you. There's no hoochies.
In the opening...
No.
Yeah, because the old theme had and hoochies.
Yeah.
I thought it's time to grow up, you know what I mean?
Oh, that was good, wasn't it? Because one boy in the guest book said he misses that.
You're starting off too micro. Can you just keep in mind when you talk about anything, Bob, like just try to talk... Remember, we've got like whatever, we've got tens
audience.
of thousands of people
Cosmic
all
audience.
over the world, so sort of like making some half comment about something you
I thought it
read
was
on the
intriguing.
guest book.
No?
Just
It's
alienates
too small.
Yeah, it's too
so they've
small.
gone already.
Yeah, they don't know what you're talking about.
all
You
right.
do. I did listen to. I downloaded the podcast last week, Bob, just to have a listen because it was our first show in
It was
ages.
awful.
Well, it wasn't awful. I do feel like you continue sentences. Like last week's show,
Yes.
you continued sentences that you started 2.5 months before I left, and like made no kind of.
No connection at all.
Yeah, you didn't like say, oh, listeners, you probably remember 2.5 months ago.
But I didn't know that the kiddies needed that. I thought elderly people like me needed connections.
Yeah,
You may remember that last month on this program,
yes.
but none of that. Anyway, tonight, this Sunday night,
Yes.
we're going to talk to Frank Gomez, who's from the Freedom from Religion Party, Australia. That'll be fun.
It will. And can you try actually having some rigorous debate with someone who holds an opposing
Well, I was
view
going to
you?
agree with everything that he said.
Do you know how dull it is? Like, just to have, like, you know, it's like Kerry Ann doing an advertorial. If someone comes in here and it's like, oh, I really don't like religion, and you go, oh, yes, I think you have a point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want that.
It does. It sounds like the vacuum cleaner sales advertorial from Kerry Ann Kennelly in the morning. You have to have fights with people.
But am I supposed
Not
to be
contrived fights, but like real fights.
But just so if you don't want to really fight.
Yeah, but you disagree with this person. That's why I bring these people
Intellectually.
in. Yes, intellectually. No, I don't mean you like
Not
to pick up-
emotionally and become personally,
No, you don't have a go at how ugly his sister is or anything
No,
like
none
that.
of that.
No.
But the ideas that he might have are
Yes.
full of
Yes.
a crock of...
Yeah.
And then we've got a Moshin Hamid, who is the author of The Reluctant Fundamentalist.
God, some other anti-American
Well, who do
coming
you
in.
dream the bloody program?
I don't
It's
know.
not
The
me.
producer just sort of like gets these people on. I just nod
And
my
then,
head.
to carry on the excitement, we've got the key 7 steps to assist smooth departure of the retiring politician's guide, which takes over from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
This is Tim Fischer.
This is Tim
Do
Fischer.
you want to explain to all our listeners in Uruguay and Uzbekistan?
Who Tim Fischer is?
Yes.
Tim Fischer, if I remember rightly, was former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. He's now the Chairman of Tourism Australia.
Yes.
And he's written an article called 7 Steps on Separation from Parliament. All right?
Excellent, Father
Does that
Bob.
help? And then after that, you've got apparently some filthy segment that says here,
Uh-oh.
allegations to be made against Father Bob.
I can't believe the producer. Listen,
By
producer.
Alex Safran,
You're not meant
who is a relative of the host of this program.
You're not meant to like publish everything on the sheet that goes out to everyone when it's like a thing
Also,
like that.
possibly a peeping Tom or eavesdropper with juicy news on Father Bob.
My father's doing a Christian class at the moment,
Oh, so he comes up with this.
and someone came up to him with the Christian class with
Some juicy...
gossip about you. It's
and
true.
and Sarapil,
What-
Australia's leading producer, leaked it
Yes.
because she's a kind woman.
Yes.
Anyhow,
Bob,
that's on the show tonight. I can't
We'll
wait
have
for
more
the end.
after this. This is Triple J. I am John Safran. That is Father Bob Maguire. Bob, I was doing a bit of research this week for a project that you're not involved in.
Oh.
You know, I do sometimes go off and sort of do my own little side projects
Oh, look, filth.
without you.
Look at this. It's all right, I'm just reading magazines, listeners.
It's
But I picked up free magazines outside the door. Yeah, I mean, what's the research?
it's about if you're a white woman,
Yes.
and you marry a black guy, does that complicate the wedding photographs?
Depends if they're black and white.
No, if they're colour photos, because I've noticed, the thing that was triggering in my head, I've noticed whenever I've been filming my documentary-style things, as soon as I go to interview a black person, my director starts talking in code to the cameraman, like starts having this sort of like little coded conversation and stuff like that, and then like the light, the light stands are adjusted and buttons are pushed on the camera.
So it's not too dark.
I thought, how would what's going on here? And how does it? And as soon as you bring it up with any wedding photographer, they go, "Oh, I know." It's like something that they're all aware of. So there's two issues. One's lighting dark-skinned people, and that's one issue. And then there's what happens if there's a dark-skinned person and a light-skinned person in the same shot.
How can you manage the lighting? And
that's a particular problem with wedding photographs, because you either get your husband's dark face like lit well, and therefore, and you can see all of that. But then if you do that, your wedding dress, particularly is blown out. Or you can like light the wedding dress, but then you're not going to really be able to see the husband of your dark-faced husband.
That's rather disturbing. I never thought of that. I must raise that at my next wedding.
Ask any wedding photographer. There's all kinds of things. So it's all solvable, but, it just means you have to bring in like one of those reflector things to bounce off light from the sun. Or you can use a fill-in flash. So you kind of hold the flash separately and shine it on his face. Anyway,
at the football, when you're watching replays of football and it's dark in the shadow of the MCG stand, listeners, which is in Melbourne, the cricket ground, they do all of a sudden, as you can see the thing disappearing into the gloom and you cannot see the play anymore, all of a sudden there is a lightning.
Oh, yes.
See? How do they do that? That's done by the cameraman, you're telling me.
I don't know.
Not by God at all.
Did you think it was God?
I thought it was God.
But then I was reading, I read a chapter in this book, borrowed from the good people at Carlisle Street Library, Technologies of Seeing, Photography, Cinematography and Television. And this angry writer, Brian Winston, he doesn't think it's just the way it is, the fact that Caucasian people come out better in photos than darker-skinned people. He thinks if you follow the history of how film was developed, they started adjusting it for the needs of making Caucasian skin look better, and even look better than it was. And he brings up these kind of like tests that were done by Kodak, like in the olden days when they were deciding exactly how they were going to print film and stuff, and they always used a lighter skinned person, a white person, as their kind of reference point. And this writer's angry because he doesn't like how everyone thinks. I don't know, this book was written like in the 80s, so I don't know if with digital cameras and stuff it's made this all null and void, but he doesn't like how people think that photography is naturalism, is that, like the way a photo is, the reason it's like that is just because it had to be like that, because a photo is an exact replication of what sort of life is. So therefore the fact that it's harder, to light a dark-skinned person in a shot, that's just... say la vie. And he's saying it's not say la vie. He's saying that film could have been developed in a different way that it made it not so. And you talk to professional photographers who still work with film, and they all talk about how different film stocks are better for different races. So Fuji, for obvious reasons, is... This is what the kind of, as far as I could tell from my research, this is like, of my...
Fuji is better for Oriental people.
Yes, and also...
Craft.
No, also because the contrast is higher. So either for Oriental people of the East, of the Orient, and also for people from deepest, darkest Africa, you go for Fuji, whilst for Caucasians, for pasty Kodak. But if you want a Caucasian... and a darker-skinned person in the same shot, so, you're a white woman, you've married a black husband, or you're a black woman, you've married a white husband, go for Kodak, because it's lower contrast, which is more beneficial for having a evening out having a black person and a white person in the same shot.
Well, that's
Kodak.
very helpful to all the photographers out
Kodak
there.
Portrait, apparently, is the film to go for.
Yeah?
Perfect for...
And how do you get the red out of people's eyes?
Well, stop photographing Satanists. So what you have to do, you have to pour holy water over these people beforehand. Before you do, say cheese. Before you do say cheese, just go there with your little...
A sprinkler?
Yeah, your little...
Yeah.
What's that called? Baptismal font.
None of the gear, but it's not. Go on.
And then your thing, and you sprinkle the holy water over the people in the photograph, and then you go back and cheese... And you'll find
no red eyes.
No red eyes, because Satan has been driven out of it.
And you heard it here on Triple J with Dr. Safran.
Coming up next, we have a Mr. Gomez from Freedom from Religion Party. And no agreeing with him.
I agree with him already.
No, you have to have a fight with him, because your function is to provide... stimulating, entertaining radio. It's not like for you to have some feel-good... I thought
that was stimulating radio when the kiddies around Australia hear a church person actually, like the Dalai Lama, able to be firm but to be friendly.
No, you can be friendly, but you've got to argue. You can't agree. I know you don't agree with these atheists. So don't... If don't like last week when I brought an atheist on...
I like that man.
Yeah, but don't. Anyway, he's coming on next.
Nice Mr. Pataki. I liked him.
Thank you, Father Bob. Hopefully on the other end of the line, we have from the Freedom from Religion Party, a newly formed political party based in Mr. Gomez. Mr. Gomez, are you there?
Yes, thanks for having me on the show.
No, thanks for coming on.
He wants to fight
Frank
with me, I don't know.
Gomez. And don't let Bob off the line. If he starts agreeing with you
he
on
can start
thing,
fighting with me, but
Bob's the problem. Bob's the problem, you know, because at least when you're up against like a real overt fundamentalist, they're honest.
Like George.
And so you can fight them on that level, whilst Bob is always like pretending he's some kind of, you know, little friends of the earth, little lefty type thing.
He's a bit of a moderate, is he?
No,
yeah, but when it comes to the crunch, ask him about abortion. When it comes to the crunch, he is like...
Same-gender marriages.
He is like Osama bin Laden.
Stem cells.
They're sometimes like that, aren't they?
He is. Now, why have you formed this new party, Freedom from Religion?
Well, it sort of started out just out of sheer frustration by what's sort of happening in politics and in the world, and the world just seems to be tearing itself apart with wars and hatred, and
it's all due to religion.
And well, I don't think it's all due to religion, but I think religion is playing a very big role in that. And I just thought, you know, for many years I've been thinking about these things and not doing anything, and here's an opportunity to actually do something and put some ideas out there, and people seem to be reacting to it very positively and joining the party, which is great.
Have you been able to kind of unpack and untangle and try to work out what mainstream Australia, where they stand on the whole religion and religion in public life? Because it seems to be slightly more muddy and grey, and then say if you went to America, where you could kind of, you know, where people create pretty kind of sound arguments that you actually can't admit you're an atheist and enter their political sphere. Whilst in Australia it all seems a bit, you know, it just seems a bit fudgier or something. It's
look, I think it's that's a really good question, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of atheists and organisations out there are trying to get the census changed so that the census can more accurately kind of pick up the true extent of religious feeling and or atheism and all those sort of beliefs in a more accurate way. I mean, I read a lot of the online blogs and online commentary on the newspapers, and you get a sense that there's kind of a full range, really. It's not just a matter of, you know, people that believe fundamentally or people that are, 100% atheists. There are actually a lot of people in the middle that, you know, for example, might have spiritual beliefs, or they might believe in the idea of a supernatural creator, but they may not feel part of an organised religion.
Does it seem like when push comes to shove in Australia, you know, like a lot of people would say we're living under a very conservative government, even a right-wing government.
Yes.
But actually when push comes to shove, specifically on like religion getting involved in politics, it like the legislation doesn't seem to get through. Like what your friend Mr. Costello or whatever trying to, or Mr. Abbott, sorry, trying to push through, Tony Abbott trying to push through things involving science and stem cells and so on. It always seems to trip up at the end, and like even
I think it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yes.
I think sometimes, for example, with this recent thing in the New South Wales Parliament with George Pell and trying to sway members of Parliament there to vote a certain way on stem cell research, there certainly are examples where things fall down, but there's plenty of examples where it has successfully found itself into politics. I'll give you an example.
Go now.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Work choice. There's been a lot of talk about work choice legislation, and one of the, it's like a tiny little subclause in there. The Exclusive Brethren, which you're probably aware of, is a fairly bizarre Christian sort of sect, have actually got an exemption for, I think, certain aspects of work choices legislation, and they're actually referred to by name in a paragraph in the legislation. Now, a lot of people aren't aware of the ways in which a lot of religious organisations sort of have power over politicians and sometimes in a very sneaky sort of way get a lot of their agenda put into the legislation and into Parliament.
That's very interesting.
And I'll give you another example. In the recent budget, for example, because I actually had to write the budget reply for the party and sort of try to, come up with some kind of formal reply to Costello's budget. And I actually went through about 700 pages of budget papers, which I know is really nerdy of me. But as I was going through it, I found that I think it was a $2 million grant that the federal government was giving for the purposes of having an interfaith conference in Melbourne. So, these are little things that, sort of always get hidden. They're too small. They're hidden in the fine print.
So what's your argument that all these things you've mentioned are somehow novel to the religious sphere as opposed to, probably there's tens of millions of dollars given to bohemian arts festivals and, and all that kind of jazz. So why are these little things that you're nitpicking out? How do we know that they're really things we should worry about rather than just another example of a whole raft of things where people...
Sure. I think that if you were going to do a full economic analysis or a financial analysis of the extent of this economically, it would completely sort of, outflank, arts funding, for example, to left-wing bohemian artists doing weird kind of stuff. To give you an example, religious organisations generally don't pay tax. They don't pay council rates. They get a whole range of exemptions under fringe benefits tax. If you add up all of those things, it's actually billions of dollars a year that, effectively all taxpayers are subsidising religion. And I would argue that the extent of it is often unknown. And, I don't blame them for trying to do that. There's nothing wrong with the idea of lobby groups. Business people go out there and lobby for changes to help them with their business. So it's just a part of democracy. But what I've found is that religious people, and particularly Christian groups, are very well organised, and they're so well organised and often well funded, and they're able to sometimes punch above their weight in a way that, for example, atheists or people that are opposed to that kind of influence don't. They all sort of send in, comments online or, sort of go on about, isn't this awful, the way that religion seems to pervade everything, but they don't actually get together and actually form groups or try to influence people or raise money. And I think what I'm trying to do here is say that atheists have to stop being, too individual and being islands unto themselves, and they need to start copying some of the cleverer tricks of our fundamentalist sort of opponents.
Well, that's what your friend Richard Dawkins is all on about in that recent successful book. Very good book, very funny book, but Bob doesn't like it because it hurts him too much. But it's like, you guys just have to get serious and get together.
It's a big ask, and that's what we're attempting to do. Trying to get more organised and more active, and actually have a.
Are you willing for religion to get out of the public debate and the cards fall where they may? Like, for example, if we say, well, hang on, Christian groups, they should stop lobbying for illegal immigrants. They should stop getting involved in that, and they should stop lobbying for kind of social justice funding. They should stop lobbying for all that. Are you willing to ask the church to remove itself from that kind of lobbying and political activity too?
Well...
Or are you one of those lefto-pinkos who wants it both ways?
No, I don't think so. I think this raises a whole issue because I think we often tend to think that if we were to, let's just say, if all churches and religion were to disappear tomorrow, sometimes people have this opinion of, well, you know, there'd be a moral vacuum, there'd be no reason for people to be nice to each other, there'd be no one driving around Sydney picking up the homeless and taking them to a soup kitchen and feeding them. And maybe they'll be partly right to some extent. And I think that part of the debate that atheists are having and free-thinking organisations are having is, do we need to start creating an idea that you have to create a new ethics or a new type of morality that's based on something other than a Bible or a Quran, because, you know, atheists can be nice people. Atheists can be compassionate and caring people as well, and there's no reason why we can't have secular organisations made up of people trying to help people like refugees or the homeless or the poor. Why does it have to be a religious denomination that's doing that? Why can't people do that? Because it's a good human thing to do.
For sure. But doesn't sometimes this criticism of religion kind of get into this thing where you kind of almost implying there should be some sort of mind control? If someone's sort of like just off on their own and they want to pray to their personal God as some sort of consoling thing, it's like it gets a bit rich. You can't stop
people thinking anything. I mean, people want to think Santa Claus exists.
Yes.
Well, you know, contrary to the evidence of his existence, you can't stop people thinking that. Where atheists have a problem is where people take their personal ideas and they band together and they get reinforced, which is often what religion does. It gets some fairly wacky ideas, but because we all kind of think of it as a group, then it kind of feels all right that we must be okay. And then somehow they feel justified to start influencing things like politics or trying to influence other people. I mean, to give you an example, in the United States, it's very difficult for any politician, regardless of whether they're a Democrat or a Republican, to even admit to being an atheist. I know we haven't gotten to that extent in Australia, but that's what really scares me. I mean, that's mind control. That's 1984 Orwellian kind of Big Brother. It's coming from religion that's doing that. It's not the atheists aren't trying to control people thinking anything.
Now, Bob, you're allowed to contribute, but only if you're going to say something to start a fight. Yes, negative.
I'm saying that the Frank... And the other boys and girls, Dickie Dawkins and Mr... What's Sam's name?
Sam Harris.
Sam Harris, and the other one too, Hitchens.
Yes.
There's a few of them.
Yeah, a few of them come out of the woodwork. But, I mean, I'm just saying that, in fact, their main argument is based on the abuse of religion in the United States of America. And they transport it to Australia. Yes, true. Yes,
I don't think it's their main argument. I think they definitely... I mean, if you look at Harris's book and also The God Delusion, I mean, they clearly focus on things like the danger of Islamic fundamentalism,
America,
and then kind of contrast that with Christian fundamentalism.
The God Delusion even gets into indigenous belief systems, and
it certainly does,
and has a go at that. That's what makes that book so.
And both books actually do talk about religious moderation. They both go and say that at the end of the day, it's not just fundamentalism that is the problem. In fact, it's often moderate religious people that are part of the problem, because they create a space in which these kind of ideas and beliefs can be given oxygen.
That is Bob.
Well, you'll have to change the
and you know, for example, you've got people like Bishop Spong, who's, you know, a very moderate, interesting kind of Christian, but you know, I sometimes prefer the fundamentalists, to be honest. I think they're a little bit more
honest.
They're not as slimy.
Yeah, they're more honest, you know. At least they you know, what they believe in might be, I think, completely wrong, but at least they believe it completely, whereas people like Spong are now saying, oh, we don't really believe in the virgin birth and the resurrection. It's now a metaphor. Well, if it's a metaphor, why not just, you know, pick up Harry Potter and use that as your Bible? Use that as a metaphor.
Bob, how do you respond to that excellent point?
Change Freedom from Religion party title to Freedom from Bad Religion.
They've already bought the website. You know what I mean? Well, the horses bolted.
You can't say freedom from religion, because religion is part and parcel of each and every boy and girl's life.
Not everyone.
Yes. That's the problem. See, everybody thinks there's a God out there we don't want to believe in. Or I'm saying,
do you know what the main thing that annoys
there?
Do you know what the main thing that annoys me about these Christian fundamentalists, Frank? Mm-hmm. Is they're a bit like it's the same problem with the extreme left-wing hippies who kind of like love this alternative medicine and stuff like that. And it's the same with the fundamentalists where they're going, oh, listen, we don't believe in what science says, we believe in this own thing. That's fine, but the only problem is they're benefiting from a society that has been built on this science that they're now criticising.
Absolutely, and that raises a really interesting sort of issue,
now you've
John,
set fire to him again.
because we're not a left-wing party, and one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to be a centrist sort of party. There are plenty of left-wing parties out there that are anti-religious. You've got communists.
They're
and
becoming more
socialists and
religious, the
Greens.
left wing.
Well,
The
some of them
unions
are,
now, Mr Costello, the Treasurer, is ranting and raving today about be careful because the unions, when they knock on your door on a Sunday morning, don't open it because it won't be a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness. It'll be a union bloke wanting to talk about workplace.
Yes, he thinks they're the new Mormons or something.
You see?
Look, we're trying to stay away from the extremes of either debate, and so you can actually be a fairly rational, reasonable, centrist sort of person who holds a 9-to-5 sort of job and pays taxes and has fairly sort of middle-of-the-range opinions on a range of subjects such as
like
economics
music.
All those types of things, but also is concerned about the impact of religion in politics. So
Frank
definitely not a left-wing
Gomez,
party.
what is your own personal bad experience of religion?
Typical patronising response from the
Not at
clergy.
all. It's analytical.
Were you beaten by a rabbi? Were you,
No, I
were you
certainly
backed over
no.
by a monk?
No, I don't really have any terribly bad experiences.
Portuguese or Spanish?
My background's Spanish, and I went to a Catholic school in the inner west of Sydney.
But your father and grandfather must have told you about that dreadful religion versus the rest in Spain. The Civil War.
Well,
I can't believe you...
as a kid, I didn't know that. As a kid, all I knew was that we were being told things by, in fact, more often than not, lay teachers, but sometimes brothers at the school, and even at quite an early age, something just clicked in my brain that said, "What? You're telling me this,
all wrong.
this manuscript is the word of God? Prove it."
Frank Gomez, a Spanish Catholic's the ones that get to wear those black hoods that look like the clan hoods, but they're
Sometimes
black.
white hoods as well.
Down the
yeah,
street.
Yes,
I
it's
can't
like
believe
a
you're
pin-
giving all that up for atheism. I'd give up Judaism to become a Spanish Catholic if I
I
get to
gave
wear
up
the black hood
Catholicism when
on
I was
my head.
about 12. And not because I had a bad experience, simply because something intellectually in my head just went, this doesn't make sense, and I'm going to question
Blame
it.
the teacher.
And the response that I got from the teachers was not a response of, well, let's investigate that, or let's look at that, or let's keep an open mind. It was, you're wrong and you're really weird. And so the experience was that these people weren't terribly interested or curious about the world around them, and whereas I was very curious about how things worked, and I wanted to learn more.
If you want to join, or if you don't want to join and want to find out about Freedom from Religion Party, it's www.freedomparty.org.au. Thank you very
That's
much,
right.
Frank Gomez, for joining
It's
us.
a pleasure. Thank
Good
you.
on you, Frank.
Cheers.
Hey, Father Bob.
I've got a present for you.
What's this? What a surprise, another visual thing that won't quite work on radio.
Well, you can tell people in your own...
I've got a present for you also, by
I've
the way.
got a present for you. This
You
one...
go first. Just hurry up.
This is the Storm badge.
Oh, the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
That's the,
they said to me, could you please get that John Safran? I said, he will accept this.
Thank you very much.
You are now a member of the Storm family.
Oh, my God.
Was it gone down into the goddamn metal shredder? It has.
Oh, no.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I mean... Has it gone...
I'll get it during the
for
song break.
heaven's
Sorry.
sake.
Anyway, thank you very much, Melbourne
Yeah, thank
Storm.
you very much, Melbourne Storm, for that.
Rugby.
They're there, yes, and they're second on the ladder.
Okay, this is the book. This is a lend, though. Remember, because I want to lend it to other people too.
What is it?
So it's not like an Indian giver. I gave you a real present last week from America. I also got this from America.
Debunking myths.
9/11 myths. Why conspiracy theories can't
that's
stand
the
up to the
aeroplane
facts.
that flew into the Pentagon. You
An
said
in-depth
wouldn't fit
investigation by Popular Mechanics.
through. Oh, I like all that.
Please read that.
See what I mean? Why
Particularly read the thing about the Pentagon, which will explain to you why the hole's smaller than the breadth
It's
of
not
a plane
true.
wings. Admittedly, these guys are only like engineers and mechanics and so on and so forth, so they're not the same as some fat 18-year-old sitting
There's not a
on
hole in the wall
Wikipedia.
big enough for the aeroplane to have gone through. I've told you before.
You know these people who like... Do you know all you need to know about this book? Is that people who are experts in engineering and science
Yes.
and civil aviation,
Yes.
they all believe that 9/11 wasn't a conspiracy.
What
And
about
they-
that
they
man
have-
on the film who showed the pictures?
They have better credentials than a bunch of
Michael Moore's
obese
friends.
17-year-olds sitting on their
Do you think
computer, kind of
re-imaging the thing?
dragging a JPEG from that Wikipedia page and then comparing it with some other JPEG.
No,
I don't understand this whole thing where there's meant to be this democratisation of,
Doubt.
truth.
Well, that's America was founded on it. Do not trust the government. That's why all the boys and girls have got guns.
Hey, whilst we're all kind of, we're all Wikipediaing our lives and deciding that truth is decided by everyone getting involved and
Yes.
I think, let's start Wikipediaing surgery, okay? From now on, let's not leave it to these doctors or these neurosurgeons with their sort of their decades of kind of experience based on science and medicine going back hundreds. Let's not go for let's just
do it ourselves.
Let's just wiki surgery. We'll just have the patient there, and everyone who edits Wikipedia and has blogs, they can all sit around and they can explain and
Make suggestions.
come to this conclusion
Don't
of how
move
we
that part.
should operate on this patient.
Exactly. I think
Let's
that's...
start wicking all life. I can't believe some people think they have more kind of knowledge and, based on...
But it's the pooled knowledge, the accumulated wisdom. See what I mean? Which is what I thought we were all fighting for, so that we have a trickle-up effect, not a trickle-down all the time. Anyway, I agree with you. But I mean, how am I to know little provincial Bobby Maguire down the deep south of Australia?
Yes. Just stop
Whether there's
listening
a
to these...
conspiracy and all that kind of thing. I didn't listen to him. I caught him on the television. I caught him on the television.
Now, before we move on, can I talk a bit more about if you're white and you have a black boyfriend,
Yes.
or if you're black and have a white boyfriend, about how to start lighting your shots? Because it's not
Yes.
just a wedding. It's like, just say you get married to someone and then, just over your entire life, you're going on holidays, you're going to take photos. Do you really want every photo to be his face kind of basically blocked out and stuff because you haven't thought this through? So what you need, the digital camera you need, it needs to have a RAW ability, R-A-W ability, which is different to most digital cameras, because what that means is after you take the shot, after the fact, you can feed the photo, into Photoshop, and you can lighten up his face.
Oh, that's...
That was another tip that was given to me by Emmanuel Santos.
Who is in the US of A?
No.
Oh.
He's in Carlisle Street.
Oh.
He's a Filipino photographer.
Ah. But
And
listen,
he's got brown skin and he's married to a white woman. So this is his exact area of expertise. He takes photos at weddings and he also has the personal insight.
So instead of saying all the whites will stand over there and all the blacks over there,
Yes.
he is able to resolve that problem technologically.
And maybe if you have a black boyfriend, you might also want to think about getting a camera that has a commander function on it.
A telephone?
No, the commander function means you can have a remote control sort of flash, which means you can hold a flash separate to the camera.
Yeah.
So therefore you can hold your arm out or to hold your arm out and point the flash at your black boyfriend's face without pointing it at your face, and then click.
Ah. Sounds like Wikipedia to me. Everybody's taken a... Is there any simple camera left anymore, or has it got to have these attributes and that addition? Anyway, go on, get on with it. No, all I'm saying is, well, you didn't ask me about that to Frank Gomez.
Yeah, Frank Gomez, go on.
Well, I mean, go on. You wanted me to lambaste Frank Gomez.
You
I'm
go.
just concerned, that's all. These days, like Wikipedia, you're saying, we've
Yes.
all got an opinion on this, that and the other thing, as though everything that's been handed down to us from our ancestors going back 5,000 years at least, are all to be dissected, and there's nothing of any value in them whatsoever. Now, that's not true. That's why I like to categorise bad religion versus good religion. Good religion does no harm, and a little good. Bad religion does harm.
The Pentagon Building Performance Report, released in January 2003 by the American Society of Civil Engineers, one of the oldest and most established and respected civil engineering
In the world, go on.
in America. And they believe the official version of
That an
what
aeroplane
happened.
did, in fact, strike the wall of the
Yes,
Pentagon.
not a missile.
Did
Now,
go through
why
the
would
wall.
they... why would the dozens of people working on that report, what interest would they have in lying?
Because they were all paid by the president.
I see. Fair enough. I stand corrected. Hey, can you interview this guy?
Sorry.
Because I haven't read the book.
Moshin Hamid, who is a Pakistani/UK, author of The Reluctant Fundamentalist, born in Lahore, Pakistan, where he grew up, attended Princeton and Harvard Law School, worked for several years as a management consultant in New York, and as a freelance journalist in Lahore, now lives mainly in London.
Did you read his whole book?
I read his whole book.
Can you do the interview? So we're going to flip it around now.
What am
I haven't read one page of his book.
Well, that's a confession that you shouldn't make
Anyway.
in public.
Coming up next,
You should be reading
Father Bob interviews Moshin Hamid. This is Triple J. I'm John Safran. That is Father Bob. Please welcome our guest, Father Bob.
Moshin Hamid. Am I pronouncing that correctly, sir?
It's Moshin Hamid.
Moshin Hamid.
Yes.
Thank you. You know the Australian inability to really pronounce names that are further removed from us than our own hometown. Sorry about that.
No, not at all.
Now, you're in London. Which part of London are you in at the moment?
At the moment, I'm near High Street, Kensington, actually.
Like, are you at a phone booth? Paint a picture for us.
Well, where I am at the moment is actually sitting in the hall outside my flat because I have my in-laws staying with me.
Oh, no.
So to avoid waking them up, I'm standing outside the front door of my flat.
That's good. I reckon we should paint the picture of all our guests calling on the telephone.
Especially living so far away as we do. You see,
Yes.
we need stimulation.
Now, you were here only last week for the Sydney Writers' Festival?
That's right.
And was that a fun, good experience? Were
It was
you
fantastic,
treated
actually.
like a celebrity?
I don't know about that. I mean, as a writer, you're a fairly minor league celebrity, but it was fantastic to be in Australia. I didn't really know what to expect, and thoroughly enjoyed both Sydney and Melbourne.
And what about, you didn't do any, did you do sessions where there was like question and answers from the audience? Because that's when book festivals get really unbearable, where people start giving long-winded kind of speeches posed as questions.
I did do some of that sort of thing, and I know what you're saying about becoming unbearable. What also happens, though, sometimes is you get some very tough questions that make you squirm and are probably good for you. So I had a bit of both.
Oh, really? What was the squirmiest question that was thrown your way?
Well, interestingly enough, some of the most squirmy questions were people who hadn't read my book. So one guy got up in an audience talk I was giving out in Western Sydney, and said, don't you think that a novel with your title, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, is just reinforcing people's stereotypes about Muslims, and sort of got into whether I was pandering to some sort of anti-Muslim sentiment. And the novel, I think, does precisely the opposite thing. But I'd never been asked that question before, and it was quite interesting to try to respond to it.
So tell us a bit about your Muslim background and where you stand now.
I grew up in Lahore, Pakistan. Sort of hard to say, about my Muslim background. My family is all Muslim.
And what sort of branch of Muslims do you have when you're brought up in that part of Pakistan?
Well, I mean, we were sort of, Sunni Muslims. I think, in a way, what you find is actually within Islam, just like within any other tradition, there's probably a huge variety in behaviors and attitudes towards spirituality. So in my family, it was, some of the people said their prayers fairly regularly, some said them less regularly. Some people fasted quite often in Ramadan, some did so less often. Some had a very almost sort of mystical relationship to spirituality. Others had a more literal one. So it was a pretty sort of heterogeneous bunch of Muslims that I grew up with.
And when did you start thinking about all of this and start making sort of your own decisions about where you were going to stand?
Well, I don't know about thinking about things. I mean, in my family, for example, the idea of did you want to fast and at what age and all that kind of thing in the month of Ramadan was pretty much left up to you. And I, in school, wound up keeping most of my fast, for example. I was growing up much less particular about, saying my prayers and that sort of thing. But as I got older, there really wasn't any sort of compulsion on me personally as to how I would practice my religion. And probably like many young people, the sort of strict modes of practice were things that I did less and less of as I got older.
And what about now? Where do you stand now?
Well, I mean, I'll give you what might be a fairly bad answer to your question. I mean, where I stand now is I'm increasingly coming to the feeling that I don't know what real purpose it serves to talk about, spirituality in a sort of public context in a way. I think we're very caught up in, who's doing what and what the rituals are, and actually the reality is perhaps much more confusing than that. What we're all doing is a bit harder to explain.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess there's that, from an outsider's perspective, there's that confusing thing about when people stop being practicing Muslims, are they cultural Muslims, like with Jews or whatever, or is it more like with, the Protestants or something, where as soon as you're not a practicing Protestant, you kind of... You stop identifying with being a Christian at all, and you just, in your head, you just become a non-Christian.
Well, I think interestingly enough, it can be both or neither. I think that I know many Muslims who are, if you call practicing, performing the rituals that one traditionally associates with Islam. If you talk about that as being a practicing Muslim, there are many Muslims who obviously are not practicing in that sense, and many of them probably feel very strongly Muslim religiously. Others may not feel so religiously Muslim, but still feel kind of, ethnic or cultural Muslim identity, and others still probably feel almost none of that. So you really run the gamut, I think.
Do I pronounce the main character's name as Changez?
That's correct, yes.
Very interesting character. And would you say that was that's a kind of the type of conflict that arose for so many Muslims, especially Pakistani Muslims, after September 11, and mirrored in the extraordinary change in the life of Erica? You've got two people going through cataclysmic changes of different...
I think that's right. I don't think either of those two characters is meant to be typical necessarily. What happens to Changez in the novel is that he's what you might call not a particularly religious person, and probably not even particularly aware of his Muslim identity as such. But after September 11th, and when he gets a sense that the sort of Muslim world is in a way under attack or under suspicion, he begins to feel much more like a Muslim, or much more like part of a community that's under threat. So that's sort of his journey. And as far as Erica's journey is concerned, she's an American woman who's in love with her dead ex-boyfriend, and her chronic nostalgia, her desire for this guy who's now dead, starts pulling her into this more and more self-destructive direction.
Yes, and of course you've got the other characters too. Jim, the mentor.
Yes.
I like the sound of Jim.
For me, the important thing about it was I wanted to tell a story about a man, Changez, who winds up leaving America, but doesn't really do so because he's badly treated, or because he's discriminated against, or because people just don't understand where he's coming from. I wanted to have a character who does so despite being relatively well treated, relatively successful, and people making an effort to help him out. And I think Jim is exactly that. Jim is sort of a corporate insider, the consummate corporate insider, but who's grown up on the outside and so has a kind of a affinity towards a guy like Changez, and really does try to help him out, and is a bit left baffled by why Changez, despite Jim's help, can't seem to be brought back on side.
And the pain of not being in your own homeland is, I think, beautifully reflected in the writing of this nice book. I think that pain that a lot of us can't understand. The Australians, of course, have only been here for 150 or 200 years, and there was always a pain in my mother's generation. They always talked about the old country, as though you could take them out of it, but you couldn't take it out of them.
And I think, at least in my generation of Australians, and I have lots of Australian friends here in the States, I did as well, what you find is so many Australians, particularly young Australians, actually leave Australia for a big chunk of time and go abroad. I think people like that probably do experience a bit of that. There's a sense among many of my Australian friends that you leave, when you're 20, 25, you go abroad for a long period of time. Eventually you'll probably go back, and when you go back, you'll go back to stay. But while you're away, I think they also suffer from that kind of longing too.
Changez goes back and finds himself at home in Pakistan.
He does go back, but what happens to Changez is when he goes back to Pakistan, he's sort of unable to forget his life in America as well. So when he's in America, he's missing Pakistan. When he's in Pakistan, he's missing America. And for me, what it is that I don't think that there are these clear answers. I don't think we can really pick one side of ourselves, whether it's Muslim or Australian or whatever it is, and say, we're going to deny all the other parts of ourselves and just say this one thing is it. Because whenever we try to do so, we wind up feeling incomplete and confused.
Is he lucky that he was living, I suppose, upper class in Lahore and also upper class in Manhattan?
Well, he's sort of a semi-broke upper class in Lahore, and he is a rising sort of nouveau riche upper class in Manhattan, so that does cushion things for him. But I think, particularly in the world today where we're asked to make choices, and I think this is true very much of Muslim communities, it's to say, what are you? Are you Muslim? Are you Australian? Are you this? Are you that? Many people realize, look, the answer to that is I am many things, and if I'm allowed to be many things, it's a much more confusing way of describing myself, but it gives me a much more calm interior life. Whereas if I just say I'm one thing and pretend that only one part of my identity is everything, it might sound simple, but the result inside me is turmoil. And I think in the case of Chingay, at the end of the novel, he is in a certain degree of turmoil. He has tried to deny this American part of himself, and he's not been entirely successful.
I've spoken to a couple of Muslims who say it's easier to be a Muslim in America than to be a Muslim in Europe or in some European countries like, say France, because of Americans' immigrant past, like you can be an immigrant and an American, whilst if you've come over from outside of France and you're a Muslim, it's like you will never be perceived as anything besides non-French, no matter what.
I mean, I think there's some truth to that. Having lived for a long time in the UK as well as in the US, and I don't really know the French experience, although I can guess, certainly if I compare the British experience and the American experience of being a Muslim, it's quite different. In America, what happens is you go there and you become an American, quite quickly. And certainly the generation that's born there is almost entirely American. And that ability to integrate, to become part of the society, part of the culture, is a huge plus to the American immigration sort of model, as it were. Whereas in Britain, what happens, and in Europe even more so, I think many people feel that they aren't part of these nations that already exist. That Britain, although it's a multi-ethnic place now, is still in some senses tribally British, tribally English and Welsh and Scottish. And where do these new immigrants fit in? So they wind up being more ghettoized, which is what you were saying. But there's also another difference where I think Britain is a bit ahead of America. Most of my Muslim friends in America tell me that although these are very well-integrated, secular, westernized people, that they feel much more uncomfortable speaking their minds. There's a sense of being under suspicion, of not being able to say what you want. And in Britain, that's remarkably less the case. In other words, in Britain, Muslims feel more marginalized, but paradoxically are more comfortable saying what they want and speaking up their critiques and not feeling like there's some sort of state apparatus watching them and being afraid of the consequences.
I wonder whether what you just explained about in America, whether that's a unique Muslim thing. I found when I'm in America, it's more like no one wants to say anything that's going to be, vaguely provocative or make you stand out on kind of pretty much any issue, kind of either for or against it. So, people won't want to make draw attention about anything political or social or ethnic.
I think that's probably true. I was speaking to an Australian writer who's now settled in New York at the Sydney Writers' Festival, and she was telling me that she's experienced that as well, that, as an Australian and somebody who thinks of herself as not very radical but somewhat radical in her thinking, she says that there's almost nobody you can speak to like that in New York because people there tend to cleave much more to the center. Now, so I think that's right, that probably there's, in the vein of being PC, in the vein of speaking stuff that won't offend, etc., there's probably considerable self-censorship that goes on in America, but even more so when the whole state is training its eyes on you and trying to find out, is the next terrorist among you.
So the last lines of the last chapter, have you got the chap looking back over his shoulder all the time, wondering what's creeping up on him? I suppose that's what the American people are like.
Well, I think it's
someone's coming after us.
I think it's what all of us have become like. We've really been over-frightened, both in the Muslim world and in the Western world, and pretty much everywhere. What's happened is we've been led to have a completely skewed sense of what the risks we face in life are. we're going to be killed, most of us, by cholesterol or malaria or, natural causes. Very few of us are likely to be blown up by a guy with a beard sitting next to us on the bus. In America, there's 42,000 Americans who die in car accidents every year. Only 6,000, which is not a small number, but 6,000 have died both in September 11th and fighting in Iraq over 7 years. Yet the idea of your car being this killer and the terrorists not being it would be almost blasphemous. So I think part of it is just to reorient ourselves and say, look, there are some homicidal maniacs out there who cloak their thinking in sort of political gestures and are trying to kill us. But at the end of the day, that's just a kind of it's a much less dangerous thing than we probably think.
With echoes of Camus and Fitzgerald, The Reluctant Fundamentalist is a riveting, devastating exploration of our divided yet ultimately indivisible world. I like that.
Thank you very much for joining us, and get back in your flat now.
Thank you. Take care.
Ciao.
Now, this is Triple J. I'm John Safran. That is Father Bob. Did you do anything to celebrate or commemorate the Dalai Lama's visit to Australia?
Yes, I smiled.
You smiled?
Yeah. Because he smiles. I like him. See, that's what I'm saying. The Roman Catholic archbishops would only be firm if they want to be about stem cells and about abortion. But say it nice. Say it nice.
I've never seen George Pell smile.
No, well, he's got nothing to smile about. The Chaser chased him around Sydney. And they had 6 George Pells turn up on the set as clones.
And did George Pell
No,
smile?
didn't like it. He slammed the door in their face.
Ah.
See what I mean?
Mm.
Which is probably what I should have done with you.
No such luck. I've never seen you smile.
I've smiled. I smiled. Haven't I smiled? I can't remember, actually. What is there to smile about?
I don't know.
No.
Now, anyway,
yeah,
I went to the new...
You won't get away with this segment.
I went to the
on
new
sleaze.
Melbourne Kabbalah Centre.
Oh, I didn't know there was a... Where is it?
It's in Balaclava Road, Caulfield. Now, I know listeners are all going, thank God he's finally talking about something in Caulfield that's not Carlisle Street. Thank God he's moved on. We're not hearing about Carlisle Street. But you'll be very upset to know Balaclava Road's actually the same as Carlisle Street. It's just one of those long things where at a certain point...
It changes names.
Yeah, it changes names. I am actually still talking about Carlisle Street.
Uh-huh. Yeah, what's it? Has a big place or a little shop or what?
Everyone's a bit confused. No, everyone's a bit confused by it. They don't know how to take it. Like, what's this new kind of Kabbalah centre, set up? Is it like the one in LA there's all the controversy? Mm-hmm. It's not that one. But I went to it because the Kabbalah Rabbi Liebel Wolf, was giving a talk on the Dalai Lama and similarities and differences between Buddhism and Judaism, and particularly Kabbalah and Buddhism. And I went with renowned Melbourne Buddhist writer Alice Pung.
Ah.
You remember Alice Pung, don't you?
We interviewed Alice Pung.
Yes. The Chinese-Cambodian or Cambodian-Chinese.
From Footscray.
From Footscray.
Oh, what a lovely thing. I thought that would have been an interview and that was that. But you these connections,
yes,
you keep them going or drag them out of the hat.
I'm not that... You see, I'm not that
Not
cynical.
opportunistically.
No, you see that? I'm not that cynical.
Oh, well, that's a lovely thing. And what did Alice Pung think about the Kabbalah Centre?
No, she thought she
and the
liked
talk,
it.
was it...
It was a good talk.
Was it a good talk?
Yeah, he didn't really lay... I thought it was going to be like he was going to lay the boots into the Buddhists.
They can't lay the boots.
Call them a dangerous cult or something.
No.
Ask if any Buddhists are sitting in the room, could they please stand up and leave?
No,
didn't happen.
No. Was there a monk?
There was no monk. There was only one other... I mean, I don't know who was actually a Buddhist. I didn't, race demand certificates or racially profile the audience. There seemed to be only one other person of the Orient in the audience.
Were there?
Yeah. And at the end, Rabbi Liebel Wolf, the Kabbalah rabbi, made a particular point of shaking the hand of the other Buddhist to kind of announce to the room, look how cross-cultural I am.
Yeah, that's nice.
I know this person of the Orient. So then, of course, I stood up with Alice Pung, my person of the Orient.
Did you have to make a speech?
No, I didn't make a speech. I just wanted to kind of go, listen, you're not the only person who knows a person of the Orient.
Oh, my God.
And then afterwards, someone had to go at you.
What? In public?
No, not in public. You know, because some people came up to me, they were like, "Oh, hey, John,"
Yeah,
and
with
stuff
that
like
crazy priest.
So this angry Israeli came up to me, and he's going, "I don't like that priest," and he said he was going, "You know, he's always attacking you." He'd seen like speaking in tongues.
Oh, yes.
And so he didn't have a sense of humour. He didn't like put your attack
does he
in
know
any
where
context.
I live?
No. And he
God.
said, "You know, you should kick the chair from under him next time." And whenever he was having a go at you, it was like I felt he was having a go at all us
Stabbing me in
Jews.
the whole of Jewry.
Yeah. So he was like, and I was trying to explain that you didn't mean it that way. But yeah, that's...
I bet a weak explanation and defence.
Yeah, no, he didn't have it. Yes, he had no sense of humour. I've actually thought about this. If you go down Carlisle Street...
If I went down Carlisle Street...
No, not if you. If one...
Yeah.
Goes down Carlisle Street, because there's a lot of Israeli Australians there, and they're like Eurasians.
Yeah.
They're like all totally drop-dead gorgeous. And it's like the ugliest Israeli is better looking than the best-looking Irish Catholic,
Yeah,
for
of
example.
course, of course.
For example, right?
That's I'd take that word.
But then on the other side of it, right, because I've noticed this, it's like they have no sense of humour.
Oh.
So it's a real kind of... It's put in front of you. You can either go out with an ugly Jew with a sense of humour or a good-looking Jew with no sense of humour.
Now, what about if, Alex, you and I walked down Carlisle
Yes.
Street? Would there be tarts thrown at me? I don't mean hoochies. Would it be dangerous or what? Somebody might feel that they should assassinate the priest.
I don't know. We'll just have to check it out. I don't think so, because what's his name? Bob Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
From, you're going, what do I
Jews
remember?
for Jesus.
Yeah, from Jews for Jesus.
Yeah.
He was down in Carlisle Street making a big hoo-ha, and he didn't get assassinated. If the Jews for Jesus guy doesn't get assassinated, you won't get assassinated.
Yeah, but I might represent the whole of Christian repression that goes back for 2,000 years and all of that.
I don't know. I haven't really gauged too much anti-Catholic sentiment in
No
Carlisle
effigy.
Street.
There's no effigy down there being burnt or anything of me.
No. I think you're paranoid.
Well, you've just started me off with a man was kicked the chair from under him and all that.
That's a very good point. I'm the one who's kind of stoking the flames of paranoia in your head.
There could be thousands out there waiting for a word from you.
To kick the chair.
Exactly. The chair. And listen, what about... so that's interesting. Did they have bottles of Madonna's water?
They did have bottles of water, and I did look a bit closer to see whether it was Kabbalah water or anything like that. But he's like Rabbi Label Wolf. He's got like legitimate religious Jewish roots. He's like Lubavitch, Chabad. So he's not like some ring-in.
No.
He's like, from... he's just decided, hey, man, this whole Kabbalah thing's taking off.
No, he's been that since the beginning, isn't he? His family.
Yeah, and it's like because Kabbalah did very much come from Chabad, the Hasidic Jews.
Yeah.
Which are like the religious Jews. So he's sort of like got a legitimate... But everyone is a little confused by it all because it's like that branch of Judaism always kept the whole Kabbalah thing quite quiet. So it's like, how come this centre's opened up? Anyway, I don't know.
Now, are these hats?
Hats.
Are these Jewish people with those big hats that's in that book?
Oh, yeah, no, he'd wear a hat.
Oh, no, I mean the big hats.
Yeah, he'd wear a big hat.
Ah.
Maybe on the Sabbath.
The black hats.
Shabbat. Do we have
But Kabbalah goes across the lot, doesn't it?
And what do you mean?
I mean, you could find Kabbalah, spirituality, in any group, liberal or reformed or Hasidic or whatever, couldn't you? Jewish people?
I guess so. Although...
It's more inclined to go
I think in reality it's like not really that much anywhere.
Oh.
Like it hasn't really taken off, at least in Australian Jewry.
It's like mystical Catholicism, you see. That's we must get onto mystical with the wounds, the bleeding wounds and the stigmata.
Have you ever...
No, I've never.
Have you ever stigmated yourself?
No.
Have you ever woken up and it's like...
And said, oh God, I'm bleeding from the hands and the feet.
And then, and you look down at your doona...
Yeah.
Down the bottom and feel like these two red blotches are kind of soaking through. Has that happened?
No, I don't think... No, that's never happened to me. Thank you very much. And I presume that your Alex will not be raising any of those questions
You seem to have been committing your life to this whole Catholic thing quite kind of like...
What?
Locking in, but you don't have... You've never even... Jesus has never even talked to you, has he?
Yes, I have secret conversations with the founder of the firm.
In what way? Have you ever seen a miracle or anything?
I don't have to say I see a miracle.
You've
every
told me
time.
nothing even vaguely ambiguous has ever happened to you. Like, you've never even, like, once been in the church and heard a rattle and thought for a second, ooh, maybe that's Christ up in the rafters.
No, because there was a bloke in the organ loft. You see what I mean?
Yes.
A scientific investigation revealed, you see, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Anyway, we've got to interview... are we going to interview Tim Fischer or not?
We will, after this.
Tonight?
Yeah, why not? Thank you, Father Bob. I am John Safran. On the line, hopefully, is former Deputy Prime Minister and Chairman of Tourism Australia, Tim Fischer. Hello, Tim.
Greetings to Father Bob.
Thank you,
Greetings
sir.
to you, John.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much for joining us. Now, you've written a piece, Retiring Politician Guide, the key 7 steps to assist smooth departure. Now, is this a little passive-aggressive potshot at Paul Keating, because he's opening up his mouth a lot these days, trying to tell everyone how to do things?
And annoying the hell out of Kevin Rudd in the process.
Yes.
It's a delight to watch.
Are you still having some fight? 10 years on, are you still having some fight with Paul Keating under
No.
the guise of a 7-step to assist smooth departure piece?
I simply believe you should cut the chase, move on, get a life. Others choose to do things other ways. I respect Mr. Keating, but I think you should leave the demons behind, and politicians, parliamentarians are human beings, and hence a guide for this separation doesn't go astray, and I've had good feedback from it.
Now, what about you? Have you ever fallen into the trap of, poking your nose in where it's not needed after your departure?
The desire to put out a press release for cooking the first family roast in a decade and carving it is quite a very real desire, but after a while one learns to control those crass emotions and not put out such a press release.
And is it this sort of thing where you find the media, not you personally, but retired politicians find the media and the public less and less interested as time goes on, and then that starts to hurt, and then you start kind of, shoving your chest out and trying more and more to get attention?
Look, I think you move on. I mean, you're no longer in Parliament, therefore you don't expect or should not expect to get the publicity associated with Parliament. If you want some publicity, you can beaver away or take up a job like Chairman of Tourism Australia, from which I stepped down on the 30th of June.
Oh, really?
With nearly 6 million tourists coming to this country, but you move on.
I heard you're getting replaced by Bindi Irwin. Is that true? That she's going to be running Tourism Australia?
She'd make a great chairperson of the
It'll
board.
be her and that purple dinosaur from the Wiggles or whatever as her assistant.
I've got to say, I have great respect for Anthony Field from the Wiggles. I have great respect for Bindi's mother, Terry, and both would make great board members of Tourism Australia, but it's up to Minister Fran Bailey to announce.
Hey, what about, that was quite divisive of you. What about the other Wiggles besides the one you mentioned? You don't like them? And what about the dinosaur?
My kids enjoy them all. I happily would say to Father Bob, some work for you, Father. I met the Papal Nuncio the other day. He's quite active. He's a Archbishop from Pennsylvania. I want him to convey an invitation to the Pope as he flies over the Kimberley on Alitalia number 1 next year to land in the Kimberley and help salute the Columba mission, 100 years old since the New Norcia monks went way up into the remote Kimberley to establish that mission. The nuns into Broome are now 100 years old. Perhaps if this Pope went to Alice Springs, this Pope can go to the Kimberley.
Have you got the facility for the plane to land?
Absolutely. Broome International Airport, right in town. They need just 120 minutes. In 10 minutes he would be at the football oval celebrating a mass, a quick drink at the Roebuck Bay pub, and back to Alitalia 1 and on his way to Sydney or Canberra.
There is only one man, Timothy, who can get that done for you.
God.
Jesus.
Mr. Dr. Pell.
Well, I actually think it's the role of the Papal Nuncio and Bishop Saunders of Broome or Archbishop
Bishop
Hickey of
Chris
Perth.
Saunders will get it done for us.
So just a passing thought for Triple J listeners. But coming back to the 7 steps, it is practical. It is about giving something back. And as anyone departs a long-held job of any kind, be it Parliament or be it a factory or be it with Australia Post or whatever, it is good that you have some links and activities to let down slowly, and including some charitable activity which can be very, very psychologically rewarding.
So what are you going to do now that you've stepped down from Tourism Australia?
Well, I remain on the board of Adelaide-Darwin Railway. I remain listening occasionally to Silver Powder or Finger Chair, or whatever they call themselves now, the combined band. I once used that line on an AM many years ago when I was Deputy Prime Minister on April the 1st, I might add. So their combined efforts on their forthcoming tour, which Triple J will follow with great detail, is not new news. Go back through AM archives, you'll find it was announced 10 years ago. But I will be busy and with my family and farms near Albury-Wodonga.
So the thing is, Tim, is it... I mean, as in the case of, say, a clergyman or a bishop or anybody else in church, that once you've finished your job as an appointed parish priest of the Kimberley or something, well, then when you're out of it, it's an opportunity to be yourself again, not, an official.
All of that, be yourself, but your interests, your hobbies, your recreations, your book reading, your bowling, your billiards, but whatever, but also, no matter how old, there's something worthwhile doing, not the least of which is now seeing quite a lot of people act as tour guides around some of the key icons of a given town or city as the tourist flow across Australia continues to grow.
Will La Nina's arrival in Australia help the tourist business, or will it maybe set it back a bit if the place is underwater?
Well, it helps renewal. It helps fill those storages, Father Bob, and
the greening of the desert,
and all of the above. Although not much green, but along the Tanami yesterday between Kimberley and Alice Springs, but a bit of green in Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. A little bit of Ireland almost has returned, and I welcome that.
Thank you very much, Tim Fischer, and good luck with all your endeavours.
Thank you, John Safran. Thank you, Father Bob.
And with the Pope's visit.
And please spread the word. We want the Pope to call in at the Kimberley and salute the great pioneers of the Kimberley of all faiths.
Thank you, Tim.
I'm John Safran. That there is Father Bob. This is Triple J. Joining us on the line
is Alex Safran.
Alex Safran, father of John Safran. Papa, are you there?
Indeed I am, John.
Papa, can you hear me as Barbara Streisand sang in Yentl?
Yes. Well, it's amazing how, you get the religion in. You've got, Yentl and the Old Testament, and then, you have me at my icon classes with the New Testament.
No,
hello, Father Bob.
Hello, the reason I've invited my father on, you're doing an icon painting class. Explain what that is.
Well, you actually, that they call it writing icons, even though anyone else would call it painting icons, and it's, it's really reproducing these old, Greek and Russian and even earlier Coptic icons.
And it's you're painting a picture of Mary and Jesus at the moment. Is this writing class, is this run by Christians or?
Yes.
They're
it's
trying to lull
actually
you
run
in.
by the Uniting Church. Like, when I enrolled, I got this, much to my surprise, I got a receipt that said Ormond College and Uniting Church, and I thought, my goodness,
they're trying to lull you in. They lull you in with the painting, and then next thing you know, there's you're being dunked in the baptismal font. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that, although that's anything. When you're in this icon class, someone else in the icon class whispered in your ear defamatory information about Father Bob. Can you please announce that on national radio now?
Well, look, I really don't like, these unsubstantiated, rumours. I mean, it's really, something that, it really shows how, one shouldn't, say too much. Because, this fellow student of mine, a lady whom I shall call Mrs. X, where, she was saying, oh, look, how come, you're here, in this Christian icon painting class if you're Jewish? And I said, oh, look, I'm really interested in religion, and by the way, so's my son. And she says, oh, what's that? And I said, oh, he's on this radio show with Father Bob. And she said, you don't mean Father Bob Maguire? And I said, yes. And she said, oh, I know him. well, not personally, but, she's saying she went to a funeral and she was really, quite stunned because, said Father Bob appeared, to be drunk. And,
Is that true, Father Bob? You turned up drunk to a funeral?
No. Some bloke said once he was down the back of the church listening to my Latin, and he said it sounded as if I was a drunken sailor speaking Latin.
Did Miss X give any information about where and when this funeral where Father Bob turned up drunk was?
No, I didn't ask her, but, she did go into a bit of detail. She said, well, he left out, this or that part of the eulogy and said, oh, come on, let's get on with it now. And so, look, I don't know, what people say. I mean, it really says, one needs to be careful about, spreading, sort of bad thoughts and the like.
Bob, have you ever had a drinking problem? Have you ever had a drink?
Never. My father drank enough for both of us.
Oh, really? So you're one of these people...
What do you mean, really? You've been at this for years, my poor drunken father. And now you've got the cheek to say that his son drunk during a funeral. But, I mean, my style may well
be misinterpreted.
Be like drunkenness. See what I mean? But I'm glad you defended me so robustly, Alex.
Yeah, besides being the person who is announcing on national radio, the rumour that no one would know about to begin with.
Circumstantial evidence.
Mm. And actually, I must confess, I'm rather surprised that John would choose to announce it because, he went to this Jewish school, Yeshiva College, and, at the end of it, I got the impression that he learned two things because he came back with these two phrases. Two Hebrew phrases, and one was Gamza Latoiva.
Everything's for the best.
Yeah, so, in the long run, it'll all work out for the best. And the other one was Lashon Hora, which means, John?
Don't talk ill of people.
Mm.
Yeah, but I haven't really followed that second one through.
But that doesn't cover goys.
Yeah. I always assumed that was just for the
in-house.
In-house. I didn't think it was for the goyim as well. Was I wrong? Damn. Well, maybe we should we'll go back to Yeshiva and talk to Rabbi Glick and
Alex,
Rabbi Finman.
he set you up to do this.
And confirm. Yeah, anyway, thank you very much, Abba, Papa.
Okay.
And when's this icon painting going to be finished? Because you've been working on it for a while. Like, isn't it just easier to do? Like, why is it taking so many weeks to paint this picture of Mary and Jesus?
Well, firstly, by the time you mix up your egg tempera and you make and you glue a bit of lemon to this board using rabbit skin glue. It's you have to do everything in the old-fashioned way, like they did back in the Middle Ages.
Lemon is lemon.
Lemon is lemon.
Did you say lemon?
No, I didn't say anything about that.
So, are you going to? What are you going to do with this icon afterwards? Maybe you should display it at Bob's church. I'm sure Bob would hang it up at his church.
Well, look, I want to see how bad it is. It may drive people away.
He's got some pretty bad art there because Bob's just a soft touch. So anyone with some sort of problem, as long as they can kind of say they're a victim of some sort, oh, I'm a victim, can you hang up my painting? It gets hung up. So just come up with some hard luck story. Probably the fact that you're in an ethnic minority is enough, Dad. You'll be able to get it hung up. Anyway, I'll talk to you later tonight, Dad.
Yes, thanks for that, Alex.
Okay, then, Bob and John, good talking to you both.
Bye-bye.
And I'll see you later,
Alex.
then.
No hard feelings.
Okay, thanks a lot, then. Bye.
Ta-ta.
Religious Song of the Week.
This week, Father Bob, we will have the Barry sisters. You're familiar with their work?
Of course.
And Jane Bart with Sam Mendoff and the Yiddish Swingtet. This is from, I reckon, let's say the 1940s. Samson and Delilah. The Barry sisters and Jane Bart with Sam Mendoff and the Yiddish Swingtet. Samson and Delilah.
The Andrews sisters, they all sounded the same.
No, it wasn't. It was the Barry sisters. Barry sisters were a famous Yiddish singing group in America in the 40s.
Have you told the listeners that Yiddish... Because we've read that book and we never asked one question tonight. Listeners, he asked me to read a book.
I didn't. You had it anyway.
The Yiddish Policemen's Union.
All I said is you had it anyway, so why don't you read it so we can talk about it on the show?
It's got 400 pages, which I've crammed into my aged cranium. And now, today I said, for God's sake, stop, because you'll have a stroke and you won't get on the program. I've stopped, and I found to my shock and horror, I have got one chapter left.
I guess we'll be able to talk about it next week in our book club. I only finished it this week too, Michael Chabon. But you're saying you don't pronounce the N.
This is, yeah. Oh, you've got a hardback.
I got it in America. I think the American edition's different.
There you are.
There you go. 2 different covers.
The Yiddish Policemen's Union, which is not mentioned, mark you, until 7/8 of the way through the book. The Pulitzer Prize-winning author of The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Did you read that?
I have read that.
I didn't read that.
Very good.
Are you recommending it?
I recommend it more than I recommend this. I think maybe you should read that 600-page book before next week.
God, I've just finished Pynchon's 15,000-page book.
Can you teach me how to read fast? Because you can read very fast.
I've got to read fast now. By the time you've said to me you've got to do this by Thursday night.
I can't tell you, listeners, you know, like if we've got a guest on who's written a book, like if we've got 3 guests on who's written a book and we get him the books by, like, Friday, by Sunday night, you've read all 3, out of respect for the authors.
Out of respect for the program.
Yes.
And I come in here and you say, by the way, you're interviewing this writer tonight because I haven't read the book. Now, that to me is a lack of integrity. Lack of integrity.
But it's good practice, because you know how, like, you hinted when I went to America.
Yeah.
You put you realised you'd sound too vain and you wouldn't be able to handle the rejection.
Yes.
You put out, like, hey, can't I do the show solo whilst you're overseas?
No, and so I invited somebody, my nephew.
You have to practice running the ship. That's why I leave these interviews up to you.
No, that's crap. That's crap. I couldn't run the ship. At 73, you shouldn't be running anything. You see what I mean?
Yes.
Look at all the old boys who are being bumped on television and radio and all that. People are sick of us. And you said you were sick of it, and the kiddies on the listening to the wireless tonight are sick of listening to old blokes going back as far as the Waterside Strikes, the Wharf, the Bastard Boys. All that's gone as far as you're concerned. Where do you start? What, the year you were born?
I was saying that when your generation, when you and David Marr and Clive Hamilton start having these fights, it's sort of like no one knows the reference points. The kiddies who've grown up on
These
MySpace,
were earth-shattering events.
They don't know what you're talking about.
So what, Zani 9/11 is the only one we're allowed to start from?
Yes.
All right, fair enough. That's the night that my watching the big fight in the jungle.
No one's interested in where you were. It's one of those boring...
Another thing you're not allowed to...
One of those boring conversations is...
Well, how far back can we go? Can we go back to to kind of...
if you were a firefighter in 9/11, then I want to hear where you were when 9/11 happened, right?
But you don't want to hear...
If you're like just sitting in some frigging... in your lounge room in South Melbourne. I was in my lounge room in South Melbourne.
I'll never forget. See what I mean?
Now,
we can't all be the middle of goddamn world-shattering experiences. This is Australia, mate.
Bob, I look forward to discussing Michael Chabon's Yiddish Policemen's Union next week with you. Can you thank our guest, Tim Fischer?
Thanks to Tim Fischer for coming on tonight.
Moshin, Hamid, and also Frank Gomez. Alex Safran.
And Alex Safran.
Listeners, you can go to triplej.net.au/Safran.
And my blog, fatherbob.com.
And look at there and write
and
stuff on the guest book.
And don't forget Open Family's Longest Night appeal on June the 21st.
And thank you, Serpil, our Turkish Muslim producer.
Australia's
he keeps on offloading all these Muslim guests on us. That's why we have like 800 Muslim guests each week. She doesn't understand there's other... Anyway, we'll see you next week.
Triple J.